So despite the fact that probably 1,000+ other people on YouTube have already done exactly this, some of them with much more detail and much more effort in the editing and so on and so forth, thus meaning that this video will just get instantly lost in the shuffle, I've decided to briefly just hop on the old mic and chat a little bit about the Zelda Tears of the Kingdom gameplay reveal today, or maybe yesterday as me posting this. So, what did I think? Okay, so I gotta first start off on a bit of a negative foot, just because it did leap out at me. I couldn't help it. And before I get started on this, let me just stress that in no way do I think anyone could convincingly accuse me of being a major graphics whore when it comes to gaming today or 10 or 20 years ago. I mean, hell, as of me recording this at the end of March 2023, by a fair margin, the video game this year that I've put the most number of hours into playing is GoldenEye 007 on the N64 Virtual Console on the Switch, a game that looked outdated by the year 2000, quite frankly, in its blockiness and adorably blurry facial textures. So after that, the game I've put the most time in this year, probably Chained Echoes, which is an RPG intentionally made to look in the spirit of a Super Nintendo game. Let me think. After that, probably Metroid Prime, the remake, which they just put out, which granted does look pretty good. They did a good job on it. And after that, probably the Super Mario Bros. 3 for the Game Boy Advance Virtual Console on Switch with the extra levels added to it. So my overall point in that little tangent is to say that no, I'm not someone who gravitates naturally towards the most impressive graphics in the world. It doesn't matter that much to me. I'll play old, blurry, blocky games, just as long as I can make out what's happening. But with all that said, I have to grant that looking at this gameplay reveal, there was definitely a part of me that was like, man, this kind of looks like a PS3 game, doesn't it? I mean, yeah, it looks equivalent to... as far as I can tell, there's nothing graphically that we see in this little gameplay reveal trailer that couldn't also have been done in Breath of the Wild, which is a game that was released fully functioning and graphically identical to the Switch version, as far as I know, on the Wii U, which is a system that came out in 2011, is it? And wasn't top of the line at the time it came out in 2011. It was like the equivalent of hardware that had come out in 2006, 2005, for other hardware developers. So really, this is it looks like a 20-year-old game, basically, getting close to it. If I didn't know what Zelda was and what Nintendo was, if I somehow, lived in a, not a fully lived in a bubble, was aware of other video games, but hadn't ever seen Zelda before for whatever reason, and I saw this, my first impression would really be that it looked kind of shovelware-ish, to be honest. I see plenty of games on even the Switch online shop, not even talking about a PS5 online shop, Switch online shop, that look more or less of a caliber of this visually, and I'm never oh man, I gotta play this for the visuals. So I don't know, they just kind of jumped out at me, not in a way that I don't want to play the game. Obviously, I've played almost every Zelda game except the ones for the 3DS, which is the one Nintendo system I've never owned, and a Virtual Console, or a Virtual Boy, I'm sorry, but there was no Zelda game for that. But yeah, it's I kind of wish maybe Nintendo would make some new hardware. Obviously it's not going to happen this year, or they'd already have announced it. It would be next year at the earliest, and that would be at the earliest, but what would that be, a 7-year cycle from Switch to the next thing? But yeah, just kind of, I don't know, I don't even necessarily care if it's totally up to the caliber of PS5 or Xbox, what's the Series X, is that what it's called? I've never owned an Xbox, but I'd like to see a Nintendo console that can at least play Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? Would that be unreasonable to ask for at this point? Not because, I'm not saying this because I don't like Nintendo, it's the opposite. I'm saying this because I'd like to see Mario and Zelda and et cetera games that are kind of doing the visual caliber of, the top of the line stuff from these days. But then again, does any of this matter? Probably not. The recent Pokemon games that I haven't played a Pokemon game since Diamond and Pearl, but just based on the clips I've seen on YouTube of them, they look they look damn near 30 years old graphically, and doesn't prevent them from being some of the highest selling games of all time. So who fucking cares? So anyway, so we have the Sky Islands, which I think we knew from very early on. At least we've known that for a while. And yeah, it looks like it adds some interesting verticality to the world. The skydiving definitely looks like a fun time. Skydiving way high up. I know there are people who figured out how to do that in Breath of the Wild too, but I couldn't be bothered to figure any of that out. But yeah, the skydiving does look fun. The going up to the islands looks fun. Looks like an interesting way to expand the world. I'm hoping that, and I'm assuming that they aren't all as simple as the one we saw, just like more basically outdoor terrain, but up in the sky. I'm hoping there's more ruins and caves and whatnot to explore in them. And I would also really, they mentioned caves specifically, so I'm assuming there'll be some kind of a, and even the very, very first trailer for this game that came out like a million years ago showed Link and Zelda going through a cave. So I'm assuming there's probably some sort of cave network even added onto the ground to kind of expand the world out a little bit. I'm hoping that they expand the 4 directions of the map out a little bit. Well, I guess 2 of the directions only go into the oceans. I don't know if they could expand much there to the south and the east, but definitely I'd hope they move the borders of Hyrule over to like north and west a little bit. Let us go over that canyon to the west, kind of see what's beyond there. And I know people have glitched out of bounds and explored the nothingness, but I'm talking like add some actual, add a few more miles of stuff beyond there. More terrain, maybe a village or something. That would be cool. That'd be cool. But yeah, exploring the Sky Islands obviously kind of calls to mind a little bit Wind Waker, I think. Obviously the comparison you make with exploring Sky Islands would be a Skyward Sword, but let's be honest, Skyward Sword, the sky felt kind of limited, which is kind of maybe an issue with the game, is that when you're up in the sky in your loft wing, it never felt much like you were truly in the sky, in the open, great expanse of the sky. Just kind of felt like a very, very, very large room with, what are there, like 10 islands in the whole sky in Skyward Sword or something like that. One with the Skyloft Village or whatever it's called, one with a little bar on it, and a few with like mini games and stuff, but it always felt very limited in that way. But yeah, it looks like there's way more Sky Island, so it calls to mind a Wind Waker a little bit, hopping from island to island to island, and it's and hopefully like Wind Waker, there's islands with dungeons of a sort. Could there be villages? I don't know, secret ruins, things to explore, mini games. Just like I'm hoping there's 100, 150, 200 islands to explore across the sky. I hope what is this? Yeah, 6 years since the last game came out, using basically the same engine, the same graphics, same sound effects even. I noticed, like a ding when you pick up the weapon, whole same engine, most of the same world. So I'm hoping they put these 6 years to use and came up with a ton of islands. Although I gotta say that I'm automatically gonna be kind of, as much as I did love Breath of the Wild and played through it multiple times and probably put hundreds of hours into it across a few playthroughs, I will tell you straight up, I'm gonna be at a by default kind of negative view on Tears of the Kingdom if it's just 120 more shrines, and they haven't changed things up in that regard, like no new dungeons, no new aesthetics. Like, I swear to God, if there's just 120 more shrines with the same like visual aesthetic of like the Sheikah tech and the music playing in all of them, I'll be like, okay, I don't know what you guys are doing with 6 years, but they are kind of coyly kind of stepping around that, like games coming out in 40 days or whatever, and they haven't shown anything yet, so maybe they have some tricks up their sleeve. I'm hoping for old school Zelda dungeons. I just am. I know it would be different with the open world. You can go to them any order you want. You wouldn't have the items kind of opening them up one by one. They might have to be, equally able to be explored from the beginning of the game, hypothetically. But yeah, I'm hoping for a little bit more of an old school dungeon feel, because I know they know how to make them, and I hope that Zelda hasn't just totally thrown that away, because they did the best in the biz for decades and that kind of thing. We do have a new robot drone enemy they showed on the Sky Island, which is good to see. I thought last game, there are a handful of things I would critique about the Breath of the Wild, despite how great it was. One would be the rain, of course. Hopefully the being able to fly up through ceilings will eliminate some of the frustration from that, or maybe they've added more ways to let you climb in the rain or something like that. The breaking weapons, and I got a little bit of PTSD as soon as Link was hitting that one robot with the branch, and the your weapon is growing weak or whatever message appeared. I was like, oh god, not this again. But one problem with Breath of the Wild would be the number of enemy types being so limited on the world map. It kind of just felt like you were running into the same moblins and bokoblins and a couple other things like the Wizrobes or whatever over and over and over again. And it was kind of a letdown, so I'm glad they have at least something more. I'm hoping they have literally twice or if not 3 times as many basic overworld enemy types. But so we have this little robot drone. It kind of struck me as pretty weak and easy to beat in one hit, especially if you sneak attacked it. I'm hoping that's kind of the equivalent of like the robot bokoblin, right, you might say, and there might be some bigger ones, and maybe even like a mega super powerful deadly killer robots, like the equivalent of like a robot Lionel, that it's incredibly hard to beat until you're very strong and you have know how to do it and have a specific strategy. Yeah, there's lots more enemies. So the kind of I've heard people calling this game Zelda Nuts and Bolts, which I get the reference, but I never played Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, but watched a few clips of it on YouTube, but like I said, I never had an Xbox, so I was never able to play it. But yeah, the crafting and making vehicles element looks, I can't decide. It could be potentially incredibly interesting, could be potentially annoying, at least from my point of view, but there's no denying that it looks perfect for the Minecraft generation, right? Another game I never particularly played. I played it for like an hour once, but it was never my thing. But I'm curious to see just how versatile it is. Is it really just basic slapping a few things together and adding engines, or is there like just hundreds of possibilities for various ways to construct and power your various vehicles and concoctions that they haven't shown yet? I mean, can you make buildings? Are we gonna see like crazy motherfuckers like in the weeks and months and years after this game comes out, like building Final Fantasy size airships, or to scale Starship Enterprise, building space stations hovering in the sky using hundreds of like propellers and like thousands of metal pieces to make space stations? Or we can have people doing this Minecraft stuff I saw where people make working calculators or computers. Like, I don't know, it depends. I mean, of what they've shown us now, no, but we have no idea if there's limits on how big things can be. They slapped like 3 wooden planks together in the trailer, but or the little gameplay demo, but can 10 things be put together? 20, 100, 500, 1,000? Are there other stuff besides propellers? Is there like a power, things you like electric charges you do? What are the options here? Because yeah, I'm kind of interested. I'm not so much interested in doing it myself. Like I said, I'm not much of a Minecrafty type guy. I'm not much of a DIY when it comes to doing the vehicles in this game. I'm not usually super invested in that kind of thing. But, I do like watching Breath of the Wild content on YouTube. A lot of people like glitching out the game, going beyond borders and stuff like that, and various other experiments. So I'm interested in seeing what other people can do, depending on how versatile it is. Maybe making a 3-part raft, a couple of propellers is about the maximum the game allows you to do. But maybe there's hundreds and hundreds of potential building blocks and powering sources and whatnot. And maybe we are going to see people making, like I said, like, Final Fantasy style airships and stuff like that. So I'm definitely curious. I'm more curious to see what other people can do than really curious to experiment with that myself. But yeah, so this trailer didn't show much about this story, but if I'm being honest, I haven't been that invested in Zelda stories in general since probably like Wind Waker. Twilight Princess had good moments, with the village kids and Zelda being a fightable boss at the end. But once Zant kind of stepped away from the story and we got again and again, I lost kind of interest. And Skyward Sword, I remember just kind of being like, whatever about the story. It was all kind of demise, whatever. And yeah, so I don't know. Zelda's an interesting series in that way, where I really like the lore. I really like the world. I like the various races, like the Zora and Rito and Gorons, and the backstory, the lore, the goddesses, the Triforce, the world, the recurring settings and themes and kind of iconography. But the actual story, I never get that invested in, I guess because you can only really get so invested in a narrative when there's like a silent protagonist, it's kind of... Story is to some extent character, and when there's not really much character, it's kind of like, So it's kind of an interesting one in that one, where the beat by beat of the plot, I'm kind of like, whatever can happen, really. I don't much care if the plot is good or bad, or it's more I just enjoy spending time in the world. I enjoy the lore and the look and the feel of it. But yeah, whatever I've said here, it is, if it's just kind of regurgitating Breath of the Wild with some slightly different mechanics, ultimately that is fine with me, because like I said, I spent hundreds of hours crisscrossing the world of Breath of the Wild, exploring everything, doing every shrine. I love the physics and battle mechanics of it. I love learning how to fight, Guardians and Lionels, and hope there's the equivalent of super tough monsters in this game. In fact, I hope this game has, like, super bosses, which is to say I hope it has like the equivalent of, like Ruby Weapon and Emerald Weapon in Final Fantasy VII. I hope we have mega bosses that are like way harder than like whatever the final boss of the game is, stuff that only like master players who've done every single thing, gotten every upgrade and the best weapons and armor and every health and stamina upgrade can even hope to beat if they're lucky. Like I would love that kind of thing, like super bosses, you know, Final Fantasy style. But yeah, despite you know, potential criticisms I've had here, especially of the graphics, which as I said, I think look just insanely outdated by this point. Like you compare this to, you know, stuff like Elden Ring last year, which isn't even, I'm not even like a hardcore Elden Ring fan. I never beat the game. I'm not coming at this from like a, you know, hardcore, like, as good as my favorite game. You know, I like Mario Bros. 3 better than Elden Ring, but, you know, you compare this, the majesty of that giant glowing tree to kind of a Breath of the Wild, which is this game, Tears of the Kingdom, is the graphical equivalent of. I think you can see we're pretty far behind there. So that's kind of the thing I'm the biggest critic of. Other things I'm more kind of wondering, like, what are the limitations here of the crafting? Do we have shrines or a different kind of dungeon? How is the map expanded? How have your abilities expanded? So I'm kind of like, I'm curious. I'm wait and see in a like positive, like obviously I'm going to buy this on day one. This is the day one purchase for me kind of way. I believe this is probably the only game this year that's day one purchase for me. Of course, I can't even think off the top of my head of what else is actually coming out this year. I mean, honestly, like, even me talking about, you know, quote-unquote AAA games is kind of a silly thing, because I barely play any of them. I don't know much about it. Mostly I play, like, pixel art style, like JRPGs and Metroidvanias. That's really where my main gaming interest lies. But, yeah, what else is coming out? Final Fantasy 16. I'm not even sure if that's a purchase for me at all, much less a day one, because I couldn't get into Final Fantasy 15 at all, and this one just kind of looks like a Devil May Cry-ish action RPG style game, so I could be wrong. Pikmin 4, yeah, I would like to play it eventually, but I don't know if that makes it a day one purchase. If Final Fantasy 7 Remake 2 comes out, that'll probably be a day one purchase, but my suspicion is that with the release as major as FF16, that's, I would bet bottom dollar that FF7 Remake 2 gets pushed to 2024, maybe around, like, didn't FF7 Remake 1 come out in summer 2020? Do I have that right? So, like, 4 years later for the second one to make sense. So, if that came out, it would be a day one purchase, but I doubt it is. But yeah, so, yeah, I'm not going to be, you know, covering Tears of the Kingdom really leading up to its release in any other way on this channel. This will be the last video I do about it until it comes out. But once it comes out, I definitely will probably do kind of at least kind of a weekly or bi-weekly, meaning every other week, not twice a week, kind of log about thinking about how the progress to the game is going. But yep, I'm curious and suspicious in some ways, but at the same time, I love Breath of the Wild, so even if at worst this is just a regurgitation of it with some extra Sky Islands, I'm sure I will at least enjoy it, if not be blown away by it in the same way. But yep, looking forward to it, and I'll check in with you all soon.